So, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good day, everybody. Welcome to this month's Fireside Chat of Startup Grind Luxembourg. Today we have Aurelia Codipietro with us, and we will delve, as usual, into her insights, how you which could benefit you on your entrepreneurial journey. Because here at Startup Grind, we give us the objective to educate entrepreneurs by showing the example, by learning from others who have done it or are in the process of doing it, and how they could do it differently. So now, without further ado, hello, Eulalia.
Hi, Steve. Hi, everyone.
Hello. So for those who don't know you, could you just really, in one or two sentences, say what you are doing for today?
Yeah, sure. So well, first of all, I'm in Luxembourg since many years, for over 20 years. I've evolved mainly in the financial sector, and in the last 15 years, specifically as a consultant, and more recently as a transformational coach. Now, the journey of transformational coach goes into joy because I apply neuroscience. I've done different trainings. I also applied for myself different trainings in neuroscience and the power of emotions. And this is very important because every time we have to confront a journey, we are actually confronting our emotions and all the hidden aspects that may have not been treated along the way. And they can come back as a form of challenge in the professional journey. It's not just about the personal. Personal and professional are linked in a way. And certainly the professional side, what we do is also linked to what we are. And this is why transformational coaching is important to have as a tool, both as a coach and as a client, especially when you are an entrepreneur.
So, thank you very much. So, I mean, as you said, you emphasized about unlocking the potential through joy. And for entrepreneurs, the journey can be incredibly demanding. How can they intentionally cultivate joy and maintain a positive mindset, even amidst the inevitable stresses and setbacks of building a business? Because, I mean, the entrepreneurial journey is, you're not from immediately at the end of the hockey stick, but it's a hard journey and you build something. How is that possible in your way, in your eyes?
So what you're saying speaks to me at many levels. It speaks to me as an individual, at individual level, because I lived through the challenges at the beginning of my personal journey, not as a consultant, because I already had my professional relationships, but going through into coaching meant to rebuild everything from scratch. So I went through the pains of the uncertain and the unknown, and the anxiety of what would happen the next day. Would I make it? So I perfectly understand that journey. And the second aspect is I also advise startups, and I helped one of the startups to go through exactly that moment where the founders think they are taking the wall, and finally they are able to see other perspectives, and therefore they're able to unlock the potential and get out of the danger. So I would say the first aspect is to from a mental perspective, then there are management perspective, but from a mental perspective, certainly the first aspect is to be certain that if you are on that path, there's something to be learned. So this is the first thing, is to have a learning approach rather than an expert approach, because as you start in the journey, there are things you need to discover. Steve Jobs was not Steve Jobs at the beginning of his journey. It was a Steve Jobs in the making. And he did mistakes. And I'm speaking about Steve Jobs because what happened during my challenging times, I went and studied more than 80 different major startups that became large corporates, and also major failures in startups. So and out of that work, I'm now writing a book that will cover both management and coaching and mindset. And I'm speaking of Steve Jobs because he is actually the first case I started with. And this case is called The Art of Comeback, of Coming Back. So he did a huge coming back because he was expulsed from his first company. Then he went on to found Next. And as he took distance from his first project, from Apple, he realized he could have done different things differently. And so he came back with better wisdom. So as you're an entrepreneur, irrespective of whether the project will be you will go over the challenges of the current project and make it successful, or whether you will have to change project, because you will realize, some of us will realize that they were meant to do something else, but the things that they were doing in the first project will be useful to for the next one. So Alex Hormozi, who is a major reference in marketing and acquisition, he said he failed many, I think I have at least in mind 20 different projects before he finally found what he was meant to do. So I think that to approach entrepreneurship with resilience and as a process, as much as a sport champion, as a sports athlete. And actually some of the cases I analyze for my book come also from the elite sports and also from arts, because in entrepreneurship there is a huge component of creation and creativity. Problem solving is one, but also responding to the market with with innovation. The roots are in creativity, so there are some lessons to be learned on that side. And yeah, I would say the first thing is really to align to the fact that it is a process, to be in acceptance of the challenges, and to be open to the challenges and to the opportunities that these challenges bring. Because most of us, when they face challenges, they take the challenge as a challenge. There is a hard time, it's challenging to see the challenge as an opportunity. And so, yeah, it's about perspectives. Where is the gift in disguise?
But on the other hand, I mean, you touch a little bit on it, but as an entrepreneur, you face moments of self-doubt or the imposter syndrome. And
Yes.
You touch upon it, but what would be one or two strategies for overcoming these internal obstacles and building unwavering self-belief, especially when taking big risks?
Yes.
I mean, internally.
Yes. So internal obstacles are not only related to self-doubt and imposter syndrome. There are other obstacles that are called limiting beliefs. They can cause or not self-doubt. Limiting beliefs can also come in the form of limiting the area that you are investigating, because going beyond that area there is vulnerability. So it's even, I would say, stronger than self-doubt, because when you're aware that you're in self-doubt, you are aware that you are most on the edge of that area, whereas when you are in a limiting belief, you're basically in a prison. And limiting beliefs are the most challenging to identify, because some of those limiting beliefs come from our personal and social heritage, and also from the society, and therefore we bathe in them, we swim in them, and we realize them until we are confronted to a reality like entrepreneurship that requires to go beyond, requires to apply some form of unconventional thinking. There are psychologists that say if you speak about your idea to your family and everyone agrees to it, then you're not on a good idea. But if you are on something where everyone goes like, are you nuts? Well, then this is maybe the good one. Because the fact is that especially I speak for me and most likely for you, our parents' generation comes from the post-war. And therefore, that was a period of a lot of pain in humanity and society and conflict and scarcity. And therefore, the risk aversion is very high. So we have also to have in mind that type of societal process and progress. And therefore, maybe this will speak less to a younger generation that may be watching this video, but the people who are in the 40s, they know what I'm speaking about. The fact of taking a safe job, because then you have a job, and not being conscious of the fact that a safe job can become an unsafe job for many reasons, for mental health issues, or because the person gets fired because it's not in a good place. So there is the illusion of security is an illusion. So this is one thing. So the limiting beliefs allow the person to be in this illusion of security, and this is why they are so difficult to disentangle and to identify. Self-doubt is already something. It's very scary. It's a very scary position, because usually when we get there is because we are in the moment where we have to confront the situation, and where we have also to overcome the situation. Like we don't want the startup, the company to go bankrupt, right? So we need to find a solution. And as we are in that situation, we are also in the process of telling ourselves, maybe I did the wrong choice. Maybe, I should have listened to my parents. Maybe, and this is where the limiting beliefs come back. So we do a step back. Now, the question is, you asked is, how do we overcome that situation? Now, in the short time we have, what I found for myself, because usually when I work with clients, I let them identify what's the best for them. But what I use for myself every morning, because my period lasted for 3 months, so my very harsh period lasted for 3 months. I basically, every time I woke up with excessive worry and strong self-doubt, I would do this. I would just take the thought physically and say, okay, you're there. I will put you aside today. I need to move on. Now I decide what I'm going to do next today. And this will be my step today. And that's it. And then I let it go. I focus on what I had to do. And I did it. And what happened out of this 3 months process that I had to go through, it basically taught me to dance with uncertainty. And especially now that we are in VUCA time, where everything is so uncertain and ambiguous, I think that dancing with uncertainty is with the unknown is a skill that you have to develop. And okay, I'm speaking of dance because dance is something very close to me. But it's basically it. It's like every time you have to adjust, and you don't know actually exactly where you're going, but you have to decide in the moment. The system, and I speak of the system as really the economical system, the global system, is so uncertain. That maybe the step that you thought that was a false step will be in the end the right step. So, so the second, the second advice I could give you is to also, with the self-doubt, suspend the judgment that's going with self-doubt. Because if you're in self-doubt, there is a part of yourself that is judging you for something. And then as you realize that you're being judging yourself, you're also going very naturally to your self-belief. So what's limiting belief? What has to start? The belief that is making you having that judgment. And therefore, maybe this is where you want to stop. Instead of putting aside that belief, look at that belief and look at it in terms of, is this belief serving me well? And how can I modify if this belief is not serving me well in a way that's most helpful? Because what the belief is telling you, especially because through judgment you will go to a limiting belief, and that's the process, what you will discover is basically that belief is the symptom of a fear, and it's there to protect you. And this is where you go one step under, and you go to look at what it is that I need protection from, and how can I respond to that protection while still moving towards where I'm meant to be and to do for the journey of an entrepreneur. Because remember, entrepreneurship is seen mostly as a way of doing things, as a way of functioning, but you can only do and you can only reach your objectives for as much as you grow as a person. When I say, like, allow yourself that space of unknown, that space of growth, that space of learning. And if you do that, entrepreneurship can be a wonderful path as a learner as well, not just as an action-driven person.
Thank you very much. I like the dance with uncertainty. I will probably quote you more often. But on the other hand, I mean, it's also, as you said, it's not the beginning. I mean, we are not immediately at the end, and we are not born as an entrepreneur, or we are becoming one. So, as you also mentioned, you experienced some career transitions yourself. And what advice would you have for entrepreneurs who are considering a pivot in their business now, or this in their venture, let's call it like that, or even a complete reinvention of their professional path? And how could they approach such significant changes with confidence?
Yes. So I would build on your question with my personal experience. So what happened to me basically for uh, a good 10 years, I was an employee. And I started in strategic marketing, because I like strategy and marketing in Luxembourg. But then the perspective 20 and more years ago were very restricted for that type of field. And then I decided to move to the funds business, because at the time was the one that has the most potential. So the longest years to come with development. And that was a strategic decision. So I looked up at the market and looked at what was the sector that was bringing the most opportunities. Even though I knew that my end, let's say, I wouldn't be working there as an employee forever, but I wanted to go in problem solving, in innovation. I love bringing new things on, and this is why I've been working as a consultant for so many years, because it's about managing initiative, new things, innovation, bringing in new stuff. And so, but to go there for personal reasons, I could not go to any of the big four consulting companies, because at the time my fiancé and husband then was working for one of them. So competitors were not suitable, and then this company was not suitable. And then I also didn't have a specific finance background, and therefore what I did is I developed into the financial sector by selecting my jobs according to what I wanted to do. So I built my roadmap for transitioning, and so I started with basically profitability, fund pricing, market studies for Fidelity. And then I moved on into risk management for another company when UCITS 3 came along with the director's office. And then this is when I started transitioning to consulting, first as an employee, and then after a few years I went freelance. And then the option was either I build my consulting company or I do something else. And I like development. I like the unlocking the potential. It's a passion. I've always been following coaches in the US since I started working, basically since 2001. And therefore, I gradually built a lot of material, a lot of stuff, and so I decided to move on to that as well. So, long story short, if you are currently an employee and willing to build your path eventually as an entrepreneur, the best thing to do is to build different skill sets, because as I moved on these different roles as an employee, I actually moved to different functions. I was not the expert of profitability, but I stayed there enough to learn what needed to be learned. I was not the expert of governance for funds, but I was there enough to know how important it is to have a decent governance within the company, and especially with, if you're a startup, you've got investors, you've got angels investors, be very mindful of the communication with those investors in the first stages of your company, because even though they put a bet on your project, they will definitely appreciate to receive periodic information about how you're moving, if you got challenges, if you see challenges ahead. The worst thing a startup can do in the seed period is to inform the investors when the issue is there, rather than inform them when they are at risk. There is a difference between risk and issue. So the risk, you have to anticipate it, and the issue is where the actual problem is. It's way more dangerous to be on the issue side than to be on the risk side. So having this process of communication with the seed investors and angels investors definitely will enhance the chances of survival for a startup, and will also preserve you in that space of resilience. So you see the bridge between the mental part and the, let's say, concrete, and how the things go. So the two things are linked one another. So if you're in a good mental shape, you will do focus work, effective work that will make you gain momentum and go fast. If you hit a roadblock, and if you are not able to anticipate, that will hit back in your mental state, because then is when you're likely not to know the answers, not to know where to ask for help, and therefore this is where then your mental will go down. So the two things need to be managed in parallel and together. So I responded to the part of how to transition from, in the process, and how to transition from an employee to, let's say, the side of an entrepreneur. Now, if you are an entrepreneur, there are entrepreneurs in the States that they adopt the, let's say, the Californian model, which is working from the garage and building the company from the living room, and that's okay if you can do it. It requires, what I found in my research is that it's a model that is adopted from young people, or from people who have a family where one of the two has a stable salary, and is also able and willing. I was looking for the word willing to support the other in their journey. It's not always the case for everyone. It's not always, especially in a society where the single couples and single parenthood, because then you can have entrepreneurs who are also parents in the meantime. And what do? Do they start the journey? Do they refrain from the journey? And so for many reasons, that could be a challenge to do. Therefore, you can opt to do some part-time consulting work. You can opt for having a part-time job as you build on your muscles on entrepreneurship. There are many forms. You can crowdfund the company, but then crowdfunding has limits. Like, you can't crowdfund for 10 years. So you can have some help, but, you can, there are many opportunities, and that certainly depends. It can be that you go back and live at your parents' house for a while. There are many options. I think it's important as an entrepreneur, if you want to build something, you have to choose the option that's most corresponding to where you're living. Like most of people in Luxembourg are away of their family, so living at their parents' house may no longer be an option. And therefore, you can decide to have a part-time job, whether freelance or as an employee in the meantime. so the options are there. You have to decide what's most corresponding for yourself.
Thank you. I mean, that is in the beginning of the entrepreneurial journey and a little bit when they are on. But then always there comes a moment, and we touched on different fireside chats also on that path about scaling, partnering, and so on. And therefore, if you get bigger, you also have to adapt yourself and your style, your managerial style. For example, it's very often it's said that collaboration and delegation are key to scaling a business.
Yes.
And how can entrepreneurs, especially those who are used to do everything themselves, who are not control freaks, but they are used to do everything themselves, learn effectively to empower their teams and build a shared sense of ownership and joy in the collective journey?
Yes. So this is something very interesting, something I touched on with the company I'm advising, with the startup, because we were discussing the recruitment side of the business, and the company is already, even though they are still quite small, but it's already expanding to different locations globally. And I was like to the founder, I was like, well then, so who is in your team able in 5 years to take over one of the offices? And he looked at me like, why are you asking so? Because I said, well, now you've got 5 or 4 offices distributed in the US and the UK here and somewhere else. You can't do the spinning. At least you can do it now, but it won't last forever. So the question is, when you recruit and you're thinking about scaling, you have to think 5 years in advance, because you need to have the time to train those people, to train to what? Well, in some cases, to train to first of all, for all cases, to train to culture, to your values. The easiest way of having a loyal close base of people around you is to have shared values. So it's important, and this is where coaching comes in. It's important for you to understand what are your foundational values and what are your inspiring values. Your foundational values will define what cannot be touched, and your inspirational values will define what drives you forward, what propels you forward. And these two sets of values will help you have a safe environment for the foundational, and an environment that is able to gain momentum, because they will resonate with the same inspirational values that you have. Especially as you build, as you're scaling, but you're still scaling in a way. And today with technology, you can scale a global business with, let's say, very few people. So that helps with having really a compact cohort in the first scale phase. Then when it becomes, something way bigger, like 300 people, starts to be a challenge. 3,000, it's another challenge, and 30,000 is, and then on and on and on, and then you get to gigantic corporations like Amazon and Walmart, where there are over 1,500,000 people. But that's a different story. So the thing is, to build a team that is around you, you really have to align the values, and then you have to build a roadmap of skills. As much as I presented for my personal journey, where I did it for myself, you have to understand what are the critical skills that are there to be filled for your startup, for your company, and therefore go and fetch those people. Now, what quality do you fetch them if you're not yet in a phase where you can pay for them? It will depend on the case for each and every company. Some startups use the fact of, let's say, trading equity. I'm not here to discuss the financial sense of that. I'm here to say only what exists, right? Because I'm not an expert in valuation, that type of deal, so I will just say what exists. Others will buy some consulting time from these people to get to work with them. Others will take them part-time. Others will give them huge bonuses, especially for sales business, for sales activity where they have to bring in returns and sales. So it can be many forms. Can be junior, let's say junior profile with a lot of potential, who are motivated and also have more time available to invest in the company. Because I'm a mother, so I know that having a kid, if I wanted to raise a kid who would be a good addition to humanity, and therefore that required attention. So, in a factual way, not all parents are not always there because they have their own enterprise, which is called children. And also on top of, right? And it was, for me, it was a balance. Does it mean that they have to be excluded? Not necessarily. It's a honest talk. It's not so immediate that if you have a young, motivated and ambitious on, while discussing, that this person is a fit, and there is a correspondence between the words and the action. So this always requires testing. So testing, entrepreneurship is a never-ending test.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm looking at the time, so coming a little bit to the end. It's a little bit everything together, but in your book, Unlocking Success, if you take that one, what would be the key insight or principle that you believe is most crucial for entrepreneurs to embrace, and how could they apply it practically in their lives or businesses? And also, beyond the tangible achievements, how can entrepreneurs measure their personal growth and fulfillment through their journey? It's a little bit an end question. You have to floor a little bit to come and say.
In the book Unlocking Success, I contributed with a chapter that is called The Power of Joy. And that chapter was alongside other chapters, and out of that I delivered a keynote speech about success, because success is built on character. So there is one of the chapters, which is not mine, but that says what is character, and we start with defining what is not character. Character is not status. Status is something you acquire through exertion of your character in time. Character is not personality, and character is not even perception, reputation that others have of you. Reputation comes as a consequence of your character. So what character is? Character is your always and never. So anything that you always do and everything that you never do, or that you never want to do, this is your character. Now the question is, what if you're always and never? And this is where we go back to self-doubt, limiting beliefs, and so forth, put you in a place that don't let you grow. And this is where you have to ask the questions that I already mentioned before, which is this serving me? Is this trait of myself serving me? And if not, how can I turn it around? Because if you have it, and if you're in that space of frustration and the space of conflict with reality, which is ultimately a reflection of us, of our energy, how can I swift it around in a way that's more serving me and my purpose? And this chapter on character also highlights the character of people who have success. And when I mean success, I mean huge success. And they are coherent, consistent, they are integrity, and they are kind of positive. Like they have this mindset where things happen for a reason. And this is where I link in with joy. Joy is an incredible power. Joy is an emotion. Let's say, I wouldn't say even emotion as a mental state, because emotion comes and goes, like it's in and out. When you are in a mental state of joy, you are there. Or like this is your resilience line. You can go a little below or a little up, but this is your base, and basically that becomes your invisible armor. And there is where, even though you go through challenges, you may suffer in the moment, but you will go quickly back to a positive stage. You will go quickly to a space where you see the learnings, and this is where you start to be in the flow of the business, in the flow of life, and things will happen very smoothly. And so the power of joy is really the power of being in that high state, mental state, where you have no doubt that you're going to make it. You may doubt the timeline, you may doubt the form, but you have no doubt that you're going to make it. And what I find is the moment, at least for myself, the moment I promise myself things, moment I tell myself, I decide I do this and full stop, the rest comes. So obviously it doesn't come like this, it comes through action. But I go there with this intention that is, I'm gonna make this happen no matter what, and this is gonna happen, and that's it. And yeah, and basically this is it. So these are the few keys, and you will find that anyone who is successful is a joyful joyful state. So you may argue, yeah, because they're successful, they are joyful. It's the opposite. You cannot be successful if you're not joyful. It's really not possible, because emotions are repellent. Energy is repellent. So if you are in a state of non-joy, you will repel the environment. So the environment was supposed to be in relationship to you and giving you opportunities. So it's very important to work on joy on the path to success.
Thank you very much for this fireside chat so far. And as usual, we have the Startup Grind Luxembourg end question. That is, if you had this crystal ball where you see the future, and if you had a magic wand with which, if you touch the crystal ball, you would see what you like, what you really like, what would it be what would you like to see there for entrepreneurship, for yourself, or what would you like to see or for the business at White?
I will share my personal journey. In my personal journey, and I talked about it in the book, is that every one of us has got something that connects them with joy. And in my case is arts, and specifically is dance, and specifically is Argentinian tango. And so what connects me with, and the path I'm following, is to develop as a dancer. And not just as an amateur dancer, but go beyond the amateur, and to be in that journey of having to go to a new space, into a space that was very much linked to me when I was a dream, when I was a child. It was a dream that I basically closed down because I thought I wasn't enough. I thought I didn't have it. And I thought that tango was a dangerous place to be in, because so full of emotions. And as a kid, the full of emotions was too much to me. And this is why I'm doing it, is because I reconnecting with dreams. Dreams are really connected to the essence of the self, and also reconnecting with my work as a coach, where I help clients to unlock their resources and to see they are well beyond enough, even though they think they are not. So this was my belief as a kid that kept me in prison, and also the fact of thinking that I was unable, and in fact it appears that I've got very high facilities in performing what I need to perform. And therefore, we form those limiting beliefs because we need to protect us from whatever we need to protect us from. And I'm going that journey. And if I wanted a wand, a magic wand, would certainly be seeing me reaching my objectives in tango, so that I can show everyone that you can follow your dreams irrespective of the age you are at, irrespective of what happened before. It's just go for it and stick to it, and magic happens. So, yeah, as a form of inspiration.
Thank you very much for this fireside chat, and I really like also what you shared with us, and also I'm looking forward to joyful dancing and be longer.
Thank
Thank you
you.
very much.
Thank you
Thank
so
you very
much.
much. Bye.
Bye, everyone. Bye.